It usually takes about an hour to do this presentation, but we're kind of short on time, so I'm going to give you the Cliff Note version. Lighting good, darkness bad. Thank you. Any questions? All righty, next slide, please. All right, how we see things. There's some mechanics behind the process of how we look at items and determine what they are, and the brain processes them and what have you. And those are called the 4 S's. They are shape, shine, silhouette, and shadow. Anyone here been to sniper school? Okay. You're probably familiar with the 4 S's from the sniper school. Slide, please. All right, shape. What number do you see? Go ahead, just say out loud.
5.
2.
5.
All right, you should be seeing a 5 if you have normal color vision. If you have a red-green deficit color blindness, which is most common, and it's very common in men once they hit about 45 and up, you'll probably see the 2. If you don't see a 5 or a 2, not much like that. Hire someone else that has better eyes. It's important to note, too, especially with access control systems, I was in project development for some software for a card reader system, and they had changed the way they represented the menus. On the old system, if you had rights to look at something, it had an eye symbol, and if you didn't have rights, it had the round circle with the bar and what have you. But when they revamped the software, they changed that to colored dots. A red dot meant one thing, a green dot meant one thing, a blue dot meant one thing. Okay, well, to the colorblind guy, you just eliminated half the effectiveness of the software. So I pointed that out to 2 different manufacturers, and one of them actually took me up on the idea and changed it. Next slide, please. Shape basically is, you see it, you recognize what it is, you make a decision based on it. The human eye can differentiate 26,000 versions of the letter A. So the shape of it is very important. All right, shine. You see something if it emits light because of the shine. So if you have a light source, you see the light shining at you, you know it's there. Also covered under shine would be reflections of the light source. Slide. Silhouette. How many recognize who this silhouette is? Be a psycho would use a slide like this. All right, what silhouette is similar to shadow. The only difference is, for it to be a silhouette, it must be backlit. So if you, when you play the little bunny rabbit games on the wall and what have you, you're doing the silhouette, the light source has to be behind the subject. Slide, please. Shadow. Shadow is what it is. You may not see the object. It may be obscured behind the corner of a building or what have you, but you'll see the shadow of the guy from the light source that's to the side, or it's anywhere but behind the subject. So if it's behind the subject, it's a silhouette. If it's anywhere else, it's shadow. Handy for vehicles and stuff too on the freeway. You can often see a car in front of the car in front of you by its shadow, not by the vehicle itself. Next slide, please. 3 reasons to have security lighting. There are probably more, but I've boiled them down to these 3. To aid or to hinder human eyesight, to enhance CCTV camera imaging, and to provide a deterrence. Slide, please. Okay, under aiding human eyesight, what we want to do is provide a higher light level to increase the eye's ability to detect, classify, and identify. You need 3 different light levels for each of these things. Okay, detect is there something new in the scene? It can be very dark, and you can tell if there's an 18-wheeler out there because there's a big blob out there. You don't know what it is, but you know it wasn't there before. So the minimum light level needed is for detection of yes or no presence. You don't know what it is, but you know there is something there. Next level up is classification. Okay, there's enough light that I can see if it's a cat or a rat or a cardboard refrigerator box blowing by, or if somebody walking around with both colors on the shoulder. That's the minimum light level. The maximum light level is to actually identify it. Okay, I see that it's a person. I see that it's Bob. I see that he's got a Glock in his hand. So the maximum light level gives you identification to the maximum degree. Slide, please. hinder human eyesight. Okay, well in security, sometimes we don't want the bad guys to see, or sometimes we don't want them to see beyond the perimeter that we've established. Very common places where you'll see these are takedown lights. Police cars, you'll have lights that shine forward. Those are takedown lights. You'll have alley lights to the sides. These are all different things that can be used. When you do a felony traffic stop, you put a bunch of light on it, put your spotlight in their rearview mirror. You're basically overrunning their ability to see. You're overpowering them with light so they can't see what you're doing between them and the light source. High-intensity flashlights, that's one of the most important police equipment pieces out there. If you don't have a flashlight at night, you're in the dark. Outward-facing lights to discourage photography. I've had some celebrity clients before, and obviously there's a problem with the paparazzi. They wanted to set up on tops of vans or hilltops or in trees or whatever and take pictures into an estate or into an event. It's very common, especially with your celebrity weddings and what have you. They'll set up a whole bunch of lights, and the specific purpose is to shine into the lenses of the cameras to give them pictures that aren't usable, or give them no pictures at all. Some things to remember when you're designing your lighting systems. Unfortunately, we can't just go do what we want to do, which is in our best interest for security. The government has to get involved. There are new rules now about light pollution. So you can't have a car dealership that has lights that give you a sunburn in the apartment complex next door to the garage. That's called light pollution. So there are very specific rules now. Everyone here been on an airplane at night? You ever notice how much light you see coming up from those light fixtures? Okay, well that's all wasted money. I mean, you're shooting light at an airplane that you should be directing down at your scene that you're wanting to eliminate. So they passed laws now about the light pollution. So you have to check with your architect and your lighting designer to make sure that your fixtures and your lenses and your fixture placement is not going to intrude on your neighbors and cause them to complain against you. Slow down on lights at gates, we talked about that. Every military facility you'll see pretty much nice, conveniently located light right about eyeball level. And the good facilities have several. They have one at 18-wheeler height, and they'll have another one down low. The idea there is as you're driving up to the gate, you can't see beyond too well, and you don't know what to do. So it makes you slow down. Slide, please. Lighting and CCTV. There's a big difference between what a camera needs to see and what the human needs to see. A camera can easily see in light levels 10 times less than what you and I need to see. The camera can also see different frequencies of light, different parts of the lighting spectrum. Where you and I will quit seeing certain light level, certain animals, cats, dogs can see beyond our range. So you have to look at what do you want lighting for. Is the lighting there to help the human's eyesight, or is it there to help the machine or the camera? I just finished a large design recently for a drinking water supply, and we put in a bunch of cameras that were FLIR cameras. And the decision was made that we didn't want to spend, a few $100,000 to light up a fence line every 30 feet when there's no human there to look at it except for the occasional patrol. We took the money that we would have spent on the lighting and were able to buy FLIR cameras, which can see in total darkness, so we get a lot more benefit for the dollars out of the FLIR camera than we would have out of the lighting. The lighting can't see the guy hiding under the car. It can't see the engine to see how warm it is. It can't see the footprints. That's the nice thing about FLIR. We had a demo out there, and it was a fairly cold night. We could see footprints 5 minutes after the guy walked through. We had a guy touch a railing, a steel railing, and the handprint was on the railing for a good 3 to 4 minutes after his hand left. So you have to decide, is lighting what is needed? If it's just there for the machine and the machine doesn't need it, don't spend the money on it. There are other ways to do it. The human eye sees roughly in the 400 to 700 nanometer frequency range. The middle of that frequency range is 550 nanometers. The most common lighting type that you'll see in security is the high-pressure sodium, low-pressure sodium. Well, it just so happens that the sodium light fixtures are tuned to about 551 nanometers. So they're perfect for aiding human eyesight. Don't do dilly for the cameras. But again, it goes back to what you need the light to accomplish. And as you'll see as we go through some more slides, different lights, different purposes. Cameras can see up into the infrared range. And one of my favorite things that I like to do, if you got some internal theft or what have you, is put up covert cameras with infrared illumination. So the bad guy's walking through with his little flashlight tripping over stuff, and I've got a camera that looks like it's broad daylight. I've done a lot of captures and arrests off of infrared illuminated systems. The thing to be aware of with the infrared illumination is the range is short and the cost is high. And we'll talk some more about that here in a little bit. For CCTV, object illumination and faceplate illumination are very important. And let me give you a comparison to the human eye. If you are trying to look at the sun and determine if someone's holding a match up next to the sun, you're not going to see the match because of the relativity between the two, the strings. In CCTV and with lighting, if you want to see an object that's out there, you need to light that object. But the negative side of that is what we call faceplate illumination on the camera or the iris. If you're trying to see across the way and there's a bright light right next to your eye, it's going to close your iris down and you are not going to see the distant objects as well as you would have. That's very important with cameras because one of the most common mistakes, they'll mount the camera on the ceiling tile right next to the light fixture. So what happens is the iris in the camera closes down and the scene gets a lot darker than it has to be, and you wind up wasting the efficiency of your camera. 9 out of 10 camera installs I go to, I'll see that. Plus they're also running in the wrong spots. You've got this much ceiling in the top of your screen, which doesn't do anything good. Auto iris versus electronic iris. The cameras these days, you have your choice. Auto iris is an actual mechanical electrical device in the lens, and it opens and closes the iris as needed depending on the light levels. The other type is electronic iris, where you use a fixed iris lens, and the camera uses electronics to change the scene composition and the lighting. Next slide, please. Some potential problems. I just discussed a couple of those. The light's too close to the camera to close the iris. Rising and setting sun. If the entrance to your facility is on the east-west road and you've got cameras looking at the entrance, then when the sun sets in the evening, you're going to have sunlight going right into your camera. It's going to close the iris down. You're not going to get the light levels and the colors that you want to see. So make sure that you take that into consideration. Put some of the cameras 90 degrees to the sun level, or put shading visors over the front of the cameras, or whatever you need to do to offset the effects of the rising and setting sun. Headlights. Back in the old days, the cameras were tube style, Vidicon, Ultracon, Nuvicon, what have you, and the big problem that we had was blooming and smearing. If you've been in the industry for a while, you'll probably remember some of the cameras where you're looking at a driveway at night and a car drives through, where you got these two big tracer trails going through the screen, and the cheaper the camera was, the longer the trail stayed there. And I've seen some trails stay there for a minute, 2 minutes. It's not a good thing. Be aware of your reflections. The windshields, chrome, different things that are in the scene can affect your image. So counteract that. Same with the rising and setting sun. Have a different camera on a different angle to give you an image when the other camera's down. Slide. Okay, now that we've, if you've got some lighting, you need to control it. You've got to turn it on and off now. There are several ways to do that. Timers, the old standby, come on at a certain time, go off at a certain time. You have to remember, though, every time daylight savings changes, go around and change all those timers, or you're eliminating, kind of like the toll road does here. You run lights in the middle of the day for no reason and waste all your tax money. Only it's not tax money in your case, it's real money, so you have to be aware of that. Photocells, the good old standby photocells, when it gets dark, lights come on. The downside to photocells is foggy days. It may not necessarily be foggy enough that you need lighting, but the photocells will think that you do, and they'll turn the lighting on, which can actually hinder your CCTV if you're in a semi-foggy area, because now you've got lights scattering off the fog, and you would have been better off with no lights, and you would have seen through some of the fog. Remote control, there are several ways to do that. Motion detectors, fairly common. Probably everybody's got a motion detector light somewhere on their house, back door, what have you. Building automation systems is another one. That's part of the efficiency. These days, when we design lighting inside, which our electrical department does, they have to do all these complex studies on the light efficiency, and the government says you have to have certain amounts of efficiency or we're not going to permit the building. So that's a big deal now. It's a very big deal. Our electrical guys will spend days and days just crunching spreadsheets on the lead design for that lighting. So what they've gone to is occupancy sensors. The requirement is that in a lot of areas, if no one's in the room, lights go off. So the light switches will have a motion detector built in or a motion detector adjacent to the light switch. Slide, please. Lighting can provide deterrence, so much so that Long Beach, California has a rebate program for installing security lighting. You put lighting in, they will knock so much off your taxes or whatever because they think it's good for the community.
Is that commercial or residential?
Commercial. Lighting is recommended by LEAs, law enforcement agencies, and neighborhood watch programs. Now here's a big surprise for you. Power companies promote security lighting. Crack dealers promote the use of crack. There's a reason for that. Of course, the power company will charge you $6 a month and let you rent a fixture from them. But if you do the numbers on it, you can go to Walmart and buy that fixture for $30 and spend 50 cents a month on electricity. So, your decision there. There are government grant programs to fund lighting. Whether you actually get any money from these programs is a different story. I went and asked for $18 million a couple of weeks ago from the state for a project, and when they quit rolling around and wiped all the tears away, they said they'd never funded a state agency for that amount of money. Hold your breath on that one. Slide, please. CHPA, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. CHPA is basically psychology. The way it looks, the colors, the lighting, all plays into the psychological deterrent effect of CHPA. And you have to get the architects in on the process very early on. I work with architects on an almost daily basis, and used to be impressed. Architects don't care if it works. They care what it looks like. And when it comes down to the dollars, that's going to be the first thing that goes out of the project. I do it every day.
What's in the contract?
I had an architect eliminate a camera because I had it on the corner of the building and he wanted it in the middle so it would be symmetrical. And I said, well, I can't see around the corner if it's in the middle of this wall, so he deleted it from the project. One of my favorite architects. Lighting defines area of, and ownership of space. So when you light your driveway going into your facility or you light your perimeter fencing system, you're saying to the bad guys, hey, you're out of the darkness into the light now, stay away. Or this is mine, this is yours, or whatever. It has the cockroach effect. Cockroaches don't like light. You turn a light on, cockroaches will generally run away. Same thing with bad guys. If they can't knock the light out somehow, they'll usually avoid it and go down the street. It goes back to the NIMBY approach, not in my backyard. Slide, please. Lighting comes in different flavors, and the different types of light put off different colors of light. The color temperature is measured in degrees Kelvin, or K. A low color temperature is a warmer color. It's more of a yellow-red light, while the high color temperatures appear to be more of a colder light or more of a blue light. Slide, please. And here's a comparison for you of some of the different color temperatures. Candlelight, 1500K, moving on up through the incandescents, up to the sunrise, sunset, tungsten, xenon, and then the blue skies got the darkest temperature. Slide, please. All right, here is the whole meat of the whole show right here. These are the different types of lights. Columns that you want to look at. Far right is the color rendering. When you light objects with different types of lighting, the color that the light puts out affects the color that you see on the monitor. If you have indoor cameras with all fluorescent fixtures, you're going to shift the light. It's not going to look natural at all. Depending on which type of fixture it is, it may shift it blue or orange. And you'll see the same with other types of light. Now, you have to play the game here between what is most efficient to operate, what you need to see with for a human, what you need for a camera, and then the operating cost. You know how security and convenience are mutually exclusive? You can't have one without sacrificing the other one. Same here. The lights that we want to use burn up the most electricity. So unfortunately, we can't have metal halide everywhere because it's just not as efficient as your low-pressure sodiums. So, and you can also have a mix too. Nothing says, other than architects, that you have to have all the same kind of fixture everywhere. You know, alternate them. You know, if you have metal halide and sodium and what have you, then you get a combination. You're helping the humans, you're helping the cameras, but you're not spending all the money that you would if you'd gone all on one fixture or the other. The start and restrike times. Some of these fixtures take 15 or 20 minutes to turn on. Well, if you have a motion detector that says Al-Qaeda Bob just climbed over your fence, you don't want to wait 15 minutes before you get a good picture of Al-Qaeda Bob. You probably like one at the point where he's climbing the fence. So you want instant on lighting in those areas. And that's very common for me to design too. You'll put metal halide floodlights in an area tied to the motion so that when we get motion in that area, that high dollar, very inefficient fixture comes on. I get the picture that I need, I shut the light on. I want to draw your attention to the last one there, the Easy Bake Oven. Does everybody know what the Easy Bake Oven is? It's a little oven with a light bulb, and you put the little pan in there and you cook the little brownies or cake or whatever. If you look at an incandescent light bulb and you describe it based on what it actually does, it's a space heater that gives off light. That's the reality of it, because it's 11% efficient. Look at your middle column there. Efficacy. You know, it was great, you know. Tom Edison was sitting in the dark, and we're all out of the dark now, but it's not the best light that's around. I've seen some comparisons that say that it's as low as 6%. Now, the other thing to think about with the lighting, especially if it's an indoor environment, incandescent lighting produces heat. So if it's 92% inefficient and it produces heat that the air conditioner has to take back out, that light is costing you much more than just the electricity that you're using to make it glow. If you switch over to compact fluorescence, which I've done with half the lights in my house, the ones that stay on for long periods of time, you get 75 watts worth of light for 13 watts, and you produce practically no heat. You can make a giant, your electric bill in a building like this could fluctuate $5,000 a month just by changing lighting fixtures from one that doesn't produce that much heat. So you have to make that decision. You got to look at all the factors. How much light does it put out? What is the color rendering? What kind of light color does it put out? How efficient is it? What's it going to cost? Operational cost, you got to look at how much is the electric bill, how much to change the bulbs out. Some of these bulbs, it's not uncommon to have a couple $100 for some of the bulbs that go in bigger assembly and fixtures. And your on time. Most of the stuff is instant on. That's gotten better over the years. The restrike times have gotten better. I want to point out the high pressure mercury. All of the old floodlights and area lights that we used to have 20 years ago, they were all mercury vapor. You know, kind of a bluish, purplish kind of light. There wasn't any other option. If you've got those, get rid of them. They're half the electricity they use is wasted. Next slide, please. Lighting is a major electrical draw. Lighting can easily use 100 times more power than the camera system needs. And occasionally I'll get clients that think they want to put all their cameras on backup power and all their lighting on backup power. And when I explain to them that you need a $100,000 generator to power your $20,000 worth of lights, they kind of lose interest in backup power at that point. It's just not practical. The only times I've done backup lighting on generators was free money. It was all government. So nobody else can afford to put generators on there. It just doesn't make sense. But, you know, selective use, there again. You know, if you've got a perimeter, nothing says you need 400 fixtures all on backup generator, but if you fell back to 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 5, it can make a giant difference. And you can also have battery powered ones as well. LED lighting is very common now. It's very nice because it draws hardly anything for power, and it produces no heat. And the bulbs last a million hours. Hopefully you'll be retired by the time the bulbs burn out. Next slide, please. A couple of things to consider. Different lighting fixtures have different lenses available for them. So just because it has a 50-watt bulb, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. How is it distributing that 50 watts of light? In security, the most common types of fixtures that we'll use is a flood, which is just a broad broadcast pattern, and then we'll also have what we call street lighting, where the lens is very specific. It puts a long, skinny band down below the light fixture, so that if you line along roads, it doesn't waste the light going out beyond the confines of the road. It stays right along the side of the road. Light scatter from fog is something you've got to watch for. We all know when you're driving in fog and you turn your high beams on, all you're doing is getting all your light back in your face. It's that faceplate illumination thing. It's now actually harder for you to see the car up in front in the fog because you're getting your own light back in your face. Another thing, too, that folks don't think about. In your car, the lights on the dashboard can be dim for a reason. I went to school with a buddy of mine that swore that you had to leave them turned up all the time. It's the same thing. If it's out there and it's total pitch black night, you need to use all the lights your headlights are giving you and get the reflections off the items you're trying to see. If you've got dash lights in your face turned up to maximum illumination, you just reduced how far you can see ahead of yourself. Any pilots in the room besides me? Cool. You know that when you fly at night in the cockpit, you got to get all the light in the cockpit turned down to the minimum level that you need it at. Same thing there. It's far more important to see things when you're flying than it is on the foggy road. The repair costs a little higher. Constant lighting indoors as opposed to the highly dynamic light levels outdoors. Indoors, you can use cheaper cameras with cheaper lenses because they don't have to respond to such a wide variety of lighting levels. You can typically use electronic irises indoors more readily than you can outdoors. In fact, I don't use them outdoors. I quit doing that 15 years ago. About the time they moved. Tampering with lights, you have to be aware of where your facility is and where the lighting is. Don't let the architect talk you into putting the light fixture 7 feet off the ground. It's pretty easy for even the smartest punk to go out and knock one of those out. But it's a trade-off. The higher the light is off the ground, the less light level is moving to the ground. So you have to get a happy medium in there somewhere, high enough that it can't be tampered with, low enough to still efficiently light the area that you need. Efficiency of lights varies with temperature. That kind of goes back to what I was telling you. It's more efficient if it doesn't see in the range the camera needs to see. This kind of goes back to that catch-22. If it's what you need for security, it's going to be the most expensive one out there. Slide, please. All right, some of these are where I talked about. We'll just kind of recap. Instant on versus slow startup. Some lights take longer to restart than they do to start when they're cold. It seems kind of backwards. But you have to be very aware of that. Some lights, if it's never been turned on, it may come up in 10 minutes. If it's been on and you turn it off, it has to cool down to a certain level before it can restrike again. So you may actually lose time there, turning one off and then back on when it's already on. Backlighting versus direct. We talked about that a bit already. If you have perimeter light, one trick that I'm doing out of my house, I'm putting infrared illuminators in the fence line, in the top of the fence, in the post. So on my camera at night, you see nothing but these 10 points of light. Now, if somebody's walking across the pasture, they're going to interrupt or obscure one of the lights. So the video motion detection can be set to say, if you don't see this light, something is between you and the light. It's costing me about 20 cents a light per post to do it. It's costing the labor and the wires a lot more. So there are other ways. You know, nothing says you've got to light it up like the circus big top to see what's going on. You just need to know, is there something in there that I need to go investigate further? Slide, please. All right, let's talk some more about the infrared illumination. Very common mistake in people designing CCTV that don't know what they're doing. They'll try to use infrared illuminators with color cameras, and the color cameras will have the cut filters in them, the notch filters, which basically means the device is added to the camera that does not let it see the infrared illumination. It's pretty embarrassing to go spend a few $100 grand on cameras and infrared illumination and it doesn't work. So you need to either use monochrome or black and white cameras that can take advantage of the infrared illumination, or a day-night camera that can revert from a color mode to a black and white mode that can take advantage of it. When you see the infrared illuminators, they come in different frequencies. If it's 840 nanometers, you are going to see a little red glow to it. It's not going to be totally invisible to your eye if it's that type of fixture that's at 840 nanometers. Now, just by going up 100 nanometers in light frequency, you can't see the picture at all. So be aware of that. Is it important? Is it a very covert installation where you can't let them see any of your lighting? If so, make sure you got the right picture. Unlike regular lighting, infrared lighting doesn't come on and stay on all night. The reason for that is there's a limited lifespan on bulbs. Infrared is different. The old bulb style, anywhere from 300 to 500 hours, and you have to replace the fixture. The range is quite limited on infrared. You're not going to light up half a mile away. Range on infrared is typically in 50 feet, 100 feet, 300 feet. If you're trying to see beyond 300, 400, 500 feet, there's not a whole lot of point in doing it. Move the light closer down to what you're trying to see. Power requirements, infrared illuminators, the new style that are the infrared LED, draw very low power. You can run a few milliwatts, you can run a fixture. It's not like it used to be. The old style, the filtered incandescent, 15 years ago, if you wanted an infrared illuminator, what you got was a device that was about that long, about that big around, and in reality, it was an aircraft landing light, which puts out the full white light, and it has filters in it that strip out the frequencies of the visible light so that only the infrared light is allowed to pass all the way through. Very expensive, about $2 a pop, and they make enough heat that they can melt anything around them. So we used them when we had to. There again, it was usually free money type applications for the government on those. Not something I'd recommend these days. It costs way too much power. You have to change the bulbs every couple hundred hours. It can give you a sunburn if you stand in front of it. Been there, done that. Okay, just to finish off, a couple of formulas here for your mathematical pleasure. Foot candle is a lumen per square foot. Play with these later on your own time. Slide, please. And here are some of the references. I pulled a number of things off the web, but here are some of the main ones. If you go to that Army Field Manual or get your ASIS Protection of Assets Manual and the Department of Energy sources, they're going to tell you anything and everything that you need to know about light. Questions? Yes, sir.
Electronic versus auto wires. What do you think is the best? Or could you just
auto iris, for the most part, is a little more expensive. You can get by with electronic iris indoors if your lighting levels are consistent. And that depends on where indoors you're at. If you're on an interior hallway that doesn't have windows to the outside, your light level is going to be pretty much constant day and night. If it's an exterior room that has a bunch of lighting, you're probably going to go back to the auto iris. The electronic irises just don't do it for me. Yes, sir.
Can you speak to security lighting and landscaping foliage that architects would love to put in?
Those two don't like to ride the same bus together. The question was, can you contrast and compare security lighting versus landscape lighting? I just finished reading an article on that this morning. The light frequencies of the fixtures that we want don't help plants grow. So what happens is the architects wind up going with more of a grow light type light fixture that helps the plants to grow and throws off a little light that we can use. So back to what I said about they don't care if it works, if it looks good. More questions? Okay, thanks for coming.